everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen, and if you've ever needed to make a cake that's pretty and colorful without, too much of a specific design, this is the cake for you. I'm going to begin this cake just like you'd begin any other cake. I have some 8-inch tiers and some 6-inch tiers, and I'm going to simply put my buttercream icing in between so I have a nice even level, and then stack it up. So there's my cake. It's got the one layer on there, trying to make it even. It's not my strongest suit, but I do the best that I can. And then just keep stacking. I'm going to take my next layer, place it right on top, do the same thing again, add another layer of buttercream, and then stack on top my last layer. Once that last layer is on top, I'm going to coat the outside of the cake in buttercream icing as a crumb coating. I'm going to make sure I put on a nice layer. It's going to be, pretty thick, but not crazy thick, because I am going to do a second layer of icing later. But I do want to have it as even as possible, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. So again, right now I just have a nice thick layer on. I'm scraping some of it off just to try to even out the sides a little bit more. And then I'm going to clean up the top and make the top as nice and flat, make the edges as sharp as I can, and then put it in the fridge and do the same thing now to my top layer, my 6-inch layers of cake. Now here is my top layer, my 6 inches that I took out of the fridge. It's sitting on top of a little 6-inch cardboard cake plate. And I've mixed some of the buttercream icing I've made. This is just a regular crusting buttercream with some blue and purple food coloring. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking little scoops of my blue, little scoops of my purple, and just kind of plopping it here and there all over the sides of my cake. I'm not going to fill it in completely with those colors. I just want little plops here and there. And once I'm happy with my plops, then I'm going to cover the whole thing with big, thick, generous dollops of regular white buttercream. Once I get the white buttercream all over it, I'm going to start kind of smearing, basically, is what I'm doing. I'm just going to smear the icing around, and that will streak the colors that are underneath of it and hopefully not make them too bright or too overwhelming. I went with the blue and purple just because those were the colors I was asked to make, and they're pretty, so they worked well together. Of course, you can do any colors you want. If you are going for a more muted, softer approach, I would recommend just putting some spots like I did and then putting a lot of the white so you don't overwhelm with your color. Of course, too, the more you scrape it, the more you'll get down to those true original plops and more of the brighter colors will show through. So you can kind of work with it. And if you find as you're scraping and everything that it just doesn't look right or it's not coming out for whatever reason, put some more icing on there. Just add some more. If you want more colors, add some more color spots. If you need more muted, you can scrape it down even more and then put more white on and just kind of mute it that way. So right now I'm just taking more scoops, spreading it around. As you can see, the stuff I'm scraping off I am reusing. You don't have to, of course. You could just stick with the white or whatever color you want. I liked how it was kind of blurred and not quite marbled, but just kind of smoky and misty looking. So I was fine reusing some of the stuff that I'd scraped off that got a little more blended together. So yeah, I'm just using my spatula there to try to create a sharp edge on top, or at least as best I can do. My icing was giving me a hard time because I had left my cake in the refrigerator too long, so it was really cold, and the new stuff I was adding on was kind of getting hard and sticking to it pretty quickly, so it took a little finesse and a little finagling and all other kind of F words to get this thing to work out properly. However, when it was all said and done and all my scraping and all my reapplying of icing was done, it came out pretty nice, I gotta say, not too shabby. So once that's done, stick it back in the fridge. I'm just moving it onto my little cake tier lifter and sticking it back in the fridge. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing with the bottom tier. This has had time to set up, so I'm just putting my purple splots here and there all over wherever I feel like they belong. And then I'm going to do the same thing again with just the blue. I'm just taking little splots of it on my angled spatula there and sticking it here and there wherever I want. And I do make sure to put a little bit on the top too. Now comes the white icing once again. I'm just going to put lots and lots of white icing on the sides till I make a nice thick coating. And then I'm just going to do like the first one and start scraping. Start removing it, start blending it together, spreading it around, all that good stuff. Now this technique is definitely going to spread them and kind of blend them together. If you're looking for more clear and defined splotches, you might want to put white icing down first really thick and then carve out little grooves and put your colored icing in those grooves so that way it won't blend as much, I would think. That's just my suggestion. Try it. Otherwise, yeah, just smear it around till you're happy. Now I'm adding some wooden cake dowels into the center of my cake because I am going to stack my tiers and I want to have a good support system going. My cake has been in the fridge, don't forget, so it is nice and firm. And I've got good buttercream fillings, so nothing slippery like mousse or preserves that could make my cake a little unstable. Trimmed off those extra pieces of the dowels. Stick it back in the fridge. Okay, now I brought my cake back out because I had to heat up my purple drizzle here. This is just a Walmart store-bought drizzle. It's actually a color white chocolate. And I just added purple food coloring to it and then shook it and shook it and shook it, and it blended together and made this pretty pastel-y kind of color. So I dribbled it all over the sides there. It was a little rough because, again, my cake was really cold. So you can see the chocolate is hardening before it gets a nice smooth drizzle going. So I was trying to smooth it out and patching it a little bit like that, and it seemed to work out okay, I gotta say. It was not the worst little fix-up I've ever done. Now I've got a big dollop of white icing there in order to secure my top tier, which is kind of hard to see, but I just picked it up because, again, very cold, crusting buttercream, gotta love it. Once again, I'm adding my purple drizzle all around the edge up top. Gotta shake it a little because sometimes it just doesn't want to come out as nice, and you don't want any of those little air bubble farts that can just ruin your decorations. I don't know the proper term. That's what I call them, so sorry if I offend. Again, I'm just going all the way around, and I'm going to trace back over the inside like that. That's what I'm doing there, just to create a little bit cleaner of a line so it's not quite as rough. Now, speaking of rough lines, I'm going to hide those borders. I've got a nice, I believe it was a closed star tip there, French star tip actually. I like those a lot. And I'm just piping some stars around the bases of my cake. So I went all the way around the bottom one as evenly as I could. Try to make them nice and same size as much as possible. Doing around the base of the top tier there. Again, looking much better. Hide that craggly line I had going there. Take it all the way around, and then because I like how it looks and I felt like the top needed it, I'm going to do the same thing on the top of my top tier. I'm going to go around the edge of the chocolate drizzle that I have on the top, that little line that I made, and that will also, clean up the look of the top a little bit and makes it look prettier. I don't know, I just really liked it. I did know that the person who was getting this cake from me had their own cake topper, so I wanted to make sure also to leave room in the top for it to be without, causing any mushing in my icing or anything like that. Speaking of icing, I'm now just piping some happy Sweet 16 on the cake because it was for a Sweet 16's birthday. Just using a little open tip and just taking my time trying to keep it even. I find I don't like writing on cakes. It's just my personal, preference. I don't like it. But if you do have to do it and you have a chocolate drizzle on your cake, then you get the pleasure of trying to work around the drips. So that's why my spacing is the way it is. That's why I've got Happy Sweet 16 on the top, having the child's name on the bottom, trying to fit it in as best I can. Now, I was asked to put some purple flowers on the cake because purple is the best color for this girl. And it's her cake, so there you go. She gets what she wants. I have just some gum paste now. I'm not using fondant. I am using gum paste. You could use fondant if you add CMC or Tylose powder to it. Go right ahead. But in this case, I happen to have some gum paste already made purple, so I used it. I just am using a Wilton flower kit. It's just a bunch of stamps, makes your life a whole lot easier. And it makes really pretty flowers too. So I stamped out a bunch of daisies, pressing on the veining tool for each of the petals. I took the rose printing set. I printed out a couple of those just to make a 5-petaled flower. I'm using that little silicone mold there to press down to make little veins in the petals. It's kind of hard to see, but the effect is there and it looks a little prettier than just plain old flowers sitting there. I'm using whatever this flower is supposed to be here, just a little stamp. It makes nice little 3D flowers though. I actually like this one a lot, because you can just put it in your little press thing, press it against the bottom, And then you actually have 3D, decorated little flowers. So I made a bunch of those as well. And when you put them all together, they're going to be lovely. But to put them all together, I'm going and adding a couple of centers using that little mold right there. Making some, I'm guessing, daisy molds and some whatever those 5-petaled flowers are. For the little guys, I'm just putting a candy pearl inside, and I'm sticking with the color scheme. I just have blue and white and purple going on. I'm not getting out of the box with those. And now what I'm doing is I have a little bit of blue shimmer, and I'm just taking a little bit of water on my paintbrush, a little bit of shimmer, and just painting it over some of the petals and some of the centers just to give it a little bit more color, gives a little bit of shine, makes it a little bit more interesting to look at because these are pretty basic flowers, I will say. Now once they've had time to set up, because again, gum paste, I'm going to stick them on the cake. I'm going pretty symmetrically, but I'm putting, one big one on each tier and then surround it by a few of the middle-sized ones. Fill in the spaces with some of the small ones. I'm connecting everything onto the cake with some icing. I'm not using any water or anything like that. And I did want to bring the flowers up onto the top of the cake a little bit, and you can see it kind of like folds over the top of the bottom tier as well to make a nice cascade. So there you go. It's a nice simple cake design. It's very pretty, very effective, and easy. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it really does help me out as well. I've got a lot of other videos out there, so please take a look. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.